Ladies and gentlemen, and especially those tuning in from the streaming service, this next session is all around the career opportunities there are in Europe. Research Careers, moderated by Anna Panagopoulou.
Good afternoon to everyone. I see we're not yet too many. I hope there will be more joining us to this very interesting discussion on research careers. This is almost the end of the RNI's week and almost the end of 1.5 days of intensive discussion about RNI policy, the RNI days. And we are here this year to celebrate the 40 years of the program. And I hope that by now you're all convinced that this is a great program. But I know that you're all aware about the program and you're all aware about the contribution of the program that is doing on the mobility of researchers. And here I wanted to mention the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, that they are very important. But when we're discussing about the program and the careers of researchers, we know very well that we have very good researchers and innovators in Europe. But is it the program enough to retain those researchers? Is it the program enough to create the conditions for those researchers to have a good career? Is this the program enough to support the development of Europe overall, the growth of Europe, and to create new talents? And the reply that we have from the policy side, it's no. The program can contribute, but we need to do something more. We are talking about 2 million researchers. A third of them, they are doctoral candidates. It is for these standards that the Commission has to put policies in place, policies that will be implemented also by the member states. And this is why we are discussing a lot in the context of the European research area, which is the single European market that we have for the mobility of researchers and knowledge. We discuss a lot about the careers of researchers. And actually, in the recent policy agenda that we have adopted 2 years ago, research careers was one of the most important topics for discussion. And there was a lot of engagement from all member states, stakeholders, universities, research organizations, and researchers themselves in order to develop further this policy. And it's a great pleasure for us, for the European Commission side, and I hope from the member state side as well, that we managed after 2 years' effort to present the new Council recommendation on careers for researchers and innovators, and to adopt this Council recommendation by the Council. What we want to do with this Council recommendation? We want to promote diversified research careers and mobility, thanks also to improve transversal skills for researchers. We want to promote attractive working conditions and remuneration, also for those researchers that are innovators that are in the early careers. We want to promote gender equality and inclusiveness, and we want to develop career support services to ensure job stability and attractive opportunities so that researchers and entrepreneurs are happy and they'll stay in Europe. But I'm not going to continue alone. We have very distinguished speakers with us today, and I would like to start by inviting on the floor Lina Calves-Munoz, member of the European Parliament, Vice Chair of the Committee of Industry, Research and Energy, but also member of the FAM Committee and member of the Employment Committee. Lina.
Okay. Thank you. Stand here. Thank you.
And it's a great pleasure for me to manage to have in my panel Manuel Heitor, Professor of the Instituto Superior Técnico of Lisbon, the chair of the expert group to prepare the interim evaluation of Horizon Europe, and a former Minister for Science, Technology and Higher Education in Portugal, and a great supporter for the careers of researchers. Thank you, Manuel. And last but not least, because from policy side we can discuss a lot, but we need to have the young people, they need to tell us what they need from us. I'm extremely happy to invite on the floor Andrea Stephanie Diaz, who is the young and extremely talented researcher and entrepreneur. Andrea was among the winners of the EU Talent on Enlighten 2022 and is a CEO and a co-founder of the startup OncoSwap. Andrea. Okay, I would like to start with Lina, the first question. Lina, you are representing here the European Parliament, and I know very well that you have been personally very much engaged on this discussion about the careers of researchers in Europe. We are heading now towards the new European elections, and we know how difficult is this turn. What is the message that you would like to pass to the European citizens on what we are doing on the research careers and young people in Europe?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me here another year. I'm really delighted because it's a topic that is very close to my heart, to my previous life before getting into the European Parliament, and especially with the work I've been doing here at the Parliament here in Brussels, nearby. And because obviously we need science for a better Europe, for a better world, in order to face all the challenges we have ahead. We need a very good science. We are very good, you were saying that. We are very competitive on research, but for doing a good science, we need scientists. And scientists obviously is linked with talent, is linked with people that are ready to work very hard, because it's a tough career and a long-term one. But for that, we need, because I was a researcher myself before, we need good institutions, we need infrastructure, we need good budget, we need to make sure that they can really pursue a good career. So we made this question to the oral question to the Commission in order to push really and to ameliorate and to improve the scientific careers for researchers in Europe, to boost mobility without brain drain, not inside brain drain and outside brain drain. Obviously, we were supporting this observatory for career development that we think is very important, because if we believe in knowledge, and we are really supporting with our budget and our regulation, we are supporting knowledge, we have also to take knowledge-based policy-making approach and decisions. And for that, it's very important to know how the careers are developing. I'm very interested, and probably later on we could develop on that, on closing both the territorial gaps, because not every region is well prepared or equally prepared in order to take profit of all these funds and program, and also the gender gap that we know we are losing women all over this long-term career. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I come back to the gender gap in my second question, but what I keep from your side is really that we have to address the issue through our policies in relation to the brain drain. We have to do something for the brain drain. I assume we have to do something from brain circulation. The observatory help us indeed a lot to follow the mobility of researchers, what are the trends and what we can do more. And we do need to address the female gap, but let's discuss this at the next point. Thank you very much. Manuel.
Thank you.
2021, 2 years ago, May 2021, Portuguese presidency of the Council, and we have you as a minister pushing very much for careers and for adopting the key, I would say, conclusions for the research careers. And that was the political guidance that we got from the Council in order to do work on the new package of the Council recommendation and all the tools that they are going together, the Charter, the Observatory, the research competence of our researchers. So, 3 years after, and coming back from a completely different perspective and with a new role, do you feel that the measures that we put in place and they have adopted by the Council is good enough? Are they going to the right direction?
It's a starting point, but again, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We are dealing with a topic that every single action is also late, is always late. Why? Anna mentioned very well that now we have about 2 million researchers in Europe. It represents about 1% of the labor force in the 27 member states. And you should remember that 10 years ago, in 2011, it was just 1.30 million. So Europe, certainly the European Framework Programme, in collaboration with member states, we have succeeded to attract youngsters for research. But we also know that the quality of the research jobs has not increased at the same pace. So we are facing an urgent issue to really increase the quality of the research jobs, particularly for the most young and for the youngsters' research. And what has been done are important steps, but not enough. And this is something that goes beyond the Commission. This as a national and the member states dimension, and definitely an institutional dimension. We should understand that to give careers, we need an employer. And therefore, we need employers with the capacity to give research careers. And the data we have is still, the most important data is still the Euroscience Eurodoc data of 2016, reporting about 2012. So it has 10 years delayed that data. And therefore, we recommended the building up of an observatory of research careers, which is still not in place. We know is a difficult task force, and institutions, we have also recommended institutions to look inside how to do it. For instance, the CESAR network of European universities is conducting a survey now with new case studies, because there are important case studies that should bring lessons. Ultimately, for the years to come, we can have a program, a co-funding program, because again, the engagement of member states and the engagement of institutions will be critical to work in articulation with the Commission so that we can provide better careers for young researchers in Europe. But this issue, the quality of the research jobs, is not a secondary issue. It has become a true European critical issue for the years to come.
Thank you very much. May I react a bit in the relation to the Council recommendation? And you mentioned the co-fund program. Of course, it's something to be looked at the future. You're not revealing something of the high-level group report, I suppose, at this stage, not yet. My question to you is more about member states. Council recommendation has recommendations for member states, for the Commission, for stakeholders. Do you think that member states will react and will adopt?
We have a very much diversified situation in Europe, and that makes also the beauty of the European context. The concentration or the number of researchers per million inhabitants differs a lot throughout Europe, and therefore the situation is very much different. And our analysis shows that apart from that diversity, there are three characteristics which strongly influence research careers in Europe. The salaries level, which is not just salaries of researchers, is the national salary, which depends above all on member states' labor policy. the career development inside institutions, and this within our democracies where we believe on autonomous university has become essentially an institutional factor. And last but not least, the support teams, people, project managers, technicians that support researchers. And again, this depends very much on the fiscal and labor policies in many countries, with some countries still with very low recognized technical careers. So we are facing a complex issue which depends certainly on the research budget, but depends on much more than that. Depends above all on labor and fiscal policies, which are national member states' responsibility, and therefore this is a difficult issue which needs a comprehensive articulation, certainly of the European Commission, but the engagement of member states and of institutions, the employers, will absolutely be critical for Europe to position in the years to come as an important attractor of research and young researchers. And we have an opportunity, in my view, a political opportunity, because we have American elections coming up, and we have the opportunity, if the forecasts are correct, to really provide in Europe an environment which can attract, again, more researchers, particularly European, but only others, to do research and innovation in Europe. And this is a very important concept, but very timely, so we need to act as urgent as possible.
Thank you very much. Very positive and strong message. But I will turn now to Andrea, who represents the young, early career researcher, but entrepreneur as well. You are in the business side. You created your own company. So my question to you is, you heard what Lina said, what Manuel said. What do you need in order to think, to be able to stay in Europe, to develop your business in Europe, and to feel that you are supported by Europe?
Thank you very much. I want to thank the European Commission for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's an immense honor and privilege to represent an entire generation of research and entrepreneurs in Europe. To answer your question is divided in two parts. First is the early career researcher part, and then the business creation. So I'm happy to provide my point of view. My background is in biochemistry, and I remember when finishing my studies, what happened to me and my peers is that we noticed very quickly that there is this huge gap between being a fresh graduate and in the job market having 4 to 5 years of experience, right? So what happens is that if you're in that unfortunate time frame, you will have a very hard time finding something that is attractive enough to keep you in research. And what unfortunately ends up happening is that many researchers are forced to leave research because they find better job conditions in other areas. So I think from an EU perspective, tackling that fresh grad part of the population is what can really contribute to keep early career researchers in Europe. In terms of business creation, that's something that definitely hits home to me. Yesterday we were talking about how there were around 61 unicorn startups in the EU in the past year versus around 400 or more in the US. And one can only wonder, what are they doing that we're not doing? I believe that this is something to be studied and really analyzed. I can guarantee as an entrepreneur that at least half of those unicorn companies, and I'm being generous, it's probably more, come from ideas that are extremely hard to believe in. That when the founders first started them, people told them that's never gonna work. I'm sure that's not feasible at all. Now, as an entrepreneur, the main difference I see between countries like the US and the EU is that maybe in other parts, we are actually given the opportunity to have those crazy ideas. When my company, OncoSwap, first started, thanks to Talenton, which does foster entrepreneurship and innovation here in Europe, the first thing we encountered here in the EU was that many people, the first thing they did was challenge the idea. We had an idea to eliminate the barriers in lung cancer screening, copying what worked in COVID testing so that everybody has access to lung cancer. The first thing we heard was, well, does this work? Is there any evidence that this works? How do you know that this will work? And my answer would always be, well, I don't know yet, but I need funding to make it happen, because if we never see if it works or not, then this will never be a fruitful idea. But that was challenging for us, to be quite frank. Then we were one of those companies that ended up going to the US to look for funding. And the response we got there was very different. It was, well, listen, I don't know if this is going to work or not. But if it works, it can change the way we see lung cancer forever. So it's worth supporting. And I think that that's the mindset that we can, in the EU, learn from. As you said, give that support to the early stage researchers and entrepreneurs to say, I don't know if your idea will work, but I got your back.
Great. You know about European Innovation Council?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Maybe have you applied?
we have. I also have some comments on that, if
Okay,
you want.
happy to hear
Yeah.
about this.
Well, we have changed. We have
Yeah.
just changed it. So
Yes, but happy to hear in any case. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Andrea. Very inspiring. Lina, so
Yes.
Andrea, she's a woman, huh?
Yes.
We're talking about the female gap.
Yes.
Tell me,
Yes.
what
well,
we have to do more?
Well, what she was saying that in this early year career, there are a lot of scientists that are leaving the career that wanted to continue with that leaving. But if we take the whole life cycle, we see that this is happening with women all over the career. It's like a pipeline. So we are losing a lot of talent because talent is equally distributed by gender, but opportunities are not. And that's the reality. Probably, I don't know if she will have been a man, they will say, oh, okay, or they will have looked to her idea, I don't know, more carefully than being a woman. But in any case, I think we have done great steps with Horizon Europe compared to previous program regarding gender equality conditionality on many issues, and that is fine, and that is really very good. I think we are going in the right direction, but this is not enough. You were mentioning labor and fiscal policies, but if you include the gender dimension, you have to look also to equality policies, because otherwise that will not work. It is not enough to intervene just on the science part. Yeah. We really need also to make a strong anti-discriminatory regulation in institutions in the labor market. We need social services. We really need, because care is, unfortunately, is very unevenly distributed among men and women. So it's not only a question of supporting women, it's also giving incentives, probably leaves. In my country now, we have a compulsory paternity leave, and it is equal, it's not transferable, and is 100% paid to men and women, as the only way that men could jump into care. Unless that happens, I always say to my PhD students in my previous life, again, that the most important decision in their career is to choose their partner and the father of their son and daughter. This is more important than other decisions being a woman. So I'm not joking. This is a reality. So we really need to make sure that when implementing all these very good steps we are doing in Horizon Europe, and also telling to member states to do it, to make sure that they are taking also the other steps in order to make equality to move forward. Otherwise, we will be losing a lot of scientific talent, female scientific talent, and I will say a lot of male talent for care. Thank you.
Thank you. And we don't want to lose the female scientific talents. You agree, Manuel? You heard Andrea, you heard Lina. You said a lot about your ideas about careers, but if you want to give us something forward-looking, really, one thing, what do you will think would be a game changer?
First and foremost, I feel very proud to be in minority in this panel, because this is a topic which are affecting Europe at large, but it is affecting above all European women. So it's important the composition of this topic. We need to share responsibilities. If you ask me, one thing is to share responsibility through co-funding mechanisms, certainly, the Commission needs to give the necessary seed funding, but co-funding with member states, with industry, and with academic institutions. And this idea of sharing responsibility to provide better quality of work for the younger generations. We are passing a world and an European context for young generations that probably is more complex than the one we received 30 years ago. And this idea to empower young generations with better conditions needs to be a shared responsibility. It's not just one responsible actor. The Commission, the member states, the institutions, the employers, either private or public. This is a shared responsibility for the needs to improve the quality of research and innovation work throughout Europe.
And in this context, I will be a bit provocative. Do you think that we will achieve the 3% target?
The 3% target was not achieved in 2020. It was planned 25 years ago, and now has been moved to 2030. First and foremost, it will depend on the salary levels across Europe. We know that only 4 countries, Germany, Austria, Belgium, and Sweden, have achieved the 3%. And if you compare the salary levels there, particularly of researchers and innovators, is completely different from other countries. So what we know in Europe and elsewhere, this cannot be imposed by law. It does not work. It is a social building process, a social process to achieve that, which will depend more than ever on the salary levels, certainly, of researchers and in general. And that is the reason why it is a critical research issue, but it goes beyond research. It is a labor which depends on national policies and the fiscal policy issue.
Thank you very much. Andrea, if you meet a young person outside, there are plenty, could you please give me a message, what you would like to tell him, why he should stay in Europe, either to do research or to do his company or to work in business?
I think we are incredibly privileged in Europe to have, associations and institutions like EIC where you will find support. I would tell them that it may seem hard at first, but if you get the right mentorship, everything can be possible. Another thing that I would recommend is also to diversify your sources of knowledge and funding. Because you might have, again, regarding my previous comment about EAC, I think my only complaint would be that the same way there is a gap between graduating and then finding a job those first years, there has to be something similar, or there happens something similar with early stage startups when it's a baby idea from the moment that you are EIC fundable, so to say. So in those gaps, I would say don't just take Europe out of your list. Just find a solution, and you will eventually come back, because at OncoSoft, that's what we're here as well doing.
Great. So we have 2 minutes, and for these 2 minutes, I would like a message for hope from all of you. And this time I'll start from Manuel. So Manuel, you are going to your next electoral campaign, and you would like to talk about research. What you would like to tell to citizens about research?
What we should essentially guarantee that citizens are in the center of new developments. Andrei works on cancer, on lung cancer research. We need citizens to understand that without research, we will not have better treatments, either in lung or in cancer in general. And the quality of our life, the quality of the life of our daughters and sons will depend on the way we really invest in new knowledge and in better knowledge, which certainly depends very much on the way we understand research as a common issue for every single citizen.
Great. Lina, the same question?
I think we really need to work very, very hard and honestly in the value of science we cannot sacrifice budget and science when there are other problems. In COVID, we saw how important it is. So we really need to really to work on the value of science in society, and to fight against disinformation, because disinformation is really killing scientific knowledge and the value of science, and this is growing and growing bigger in our society. So I think it is something we really need to tackle, and to show people and to share with people how important it is to be a scientist for the well-being of everybody.
Great. Andrea?
I think my message is mostly to the younger entrepreneurs and the younger researchers. I would love to take the opportunity to really encourage them to never underestimate the power that we have, that my generation has. I think my generation is one that's incredibly hungry for impact and a true change in society, and specifically researchers. We have a huge power in our hands. So even though, yes, it's important to have conversations like this where we're talking about what can be improved and what we can do better, it's really important to never forget that whatever we do today, my generation does today, will be the future of a brighter Europe.
Great. Thank you very much to all of you. Let's build together the brighter Europe and of the world through research and innovation, and with talented people like Andrea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we heard, I think, 2 or maybe 3 days ago about how Europe is such a powerful research powerhouse, and this is going to help ensure that that will remain the case. Ladies and gentlemen, the other workshops going on from now in workshop room number 1, transforming research evaluation, and in workshop number 2, towards an ERA free from gender violence in science. Thank you.